Yeah, it's recording.
Oh my God, it says I have a problem. Check my speaker. Recording will not include audio.
Is that right?
Mike, can you do the recording? I don't know why it would say that. It's never said that. Sorry, guys. We're in a little crisis here.
Well, go
you
ahead.
Know what? I think it's because my phone is not connected to my account. So I'm gonna actually I'm gonna
maybe you can start recording. Maybe you can start recording
what?
from your. Why don't you start recording from your computer?
Mike, let me I'm pretty sure it's because
I'm recording.
I know why this problem has happened. I'm going to hang up and I'm going to call back in. So just hang on, everybody.
All right.
Keep them entertained, okay?
Mike, I didn't get a notice that you were recording like I did when she did. She started.
Well, yeah, but she was everybody already knew it was recording, so there's no point.
Oh, okay.
Telling everybody over again. Let's see if she's still on. Cynthia? Oh, she's in. You there?
Oh, okay, I'm back. Mike, did you start the recording?
I started recording on my computer. It's recording on my computer, but go ahead and try it on yours.
Well, I'm not sure we can record in two places.
Well,
no, we can't. So that's fine. You'll put it on your computer. Everything's good.
Fine.
And I'll explain to you later why this
it's okay.
happened.
Why don't you go ahead and get started?
Yeah, I'm going to. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is you've joined our free webinar series, which we started last year, and we're the North San Joaquin Valley chapter of California Native Plant Society. Just to remind you, we record all of the webinars and upload them to our YouTube channel. The webinars are typically the second Monday evening of each month, so you can mark it on your calendar. In fact, it's always the second Monday evening of each month. The next one is Monday, November 13th. So I'm the organizer of these webinars. If you would like to be a speaker or have an idea, just send me an email. Okay, so I'm going to give a quick overview here, and then Mike Azevedo is going to talk about our chapter and CNPS in general. Then I'm going to introduce Gail Davis, who's our speaker tonight. So again, it's going to be recorded and uploaded, and you can find out everything from our Facebook page, website, newsletter, all kinds of places. Just a quick view of our previous webinars. We started in 2022. We had one on biodiversity, one on reliable California native plants for a garden with no irrigation, another one about growing a native plant garden, and then inspirational outings about the public lands in the Central Valley. So our focus, of course, is the Central Valley. Class on basic botany of the wildflowers. We did a floral display with native plants in March. We did vernal pools in April. We had a presentation about here in Modesto, I'm in Modesto, the La Loma Community Native Plant Garden. That's a very interesting, fantastic garden. It's 2 acres. We did had a speaker talk about landscape design with native plants. We did biophyte basics. I didn't even know what those were until we did had the presentation. And then in August, we had native plants of the San Luis National Wildlife Refuge and the benefits to wildlife. We had to postpone the September 11th talk, which was continuing the reliable California native plants for a garden with no irrigation. And we're going to hopefully have that next in the spring next year. But what's happening tonight? So we have got Gail Davis here from the Fish and Wildlife, Department of Fish and Wildlife. And it's not just another fish. She's going to tell us all about how native fish need native plants. And I guess maybe native plants need native fish too. Then in November, this will be Cynthia Gingerich, who spoke earlier about making arrangements of bouquets of native plants. And then she's going to talk about how you can do bouquets, garland, wreaths for the holidays. December, we take off, and January, we'll have our own Mike, Azevedo, who's right here on the call. I'm talking about Calscape, and there's quite a few interesting things going on with Calscape for our chapter in particular. And February 12th, we'll have California Water Culture by Tina Donnelly, who's also in our chapter. Okay. This is a quick view of our YouTube channel at NSJV_CNPS. We have nearly 4,000 views. We have several playlists, 138 subscribers, just for fun. And every webinar is there. Wait, I think I already did this one. Anyway, our speaker is Gail Davis. Her title is Fish and Wildlife Interpreter. Very interested in that with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And I just want to mention that how I met Gail was I took this fantastic course called, oh my gosh, my mind's gone blank, the California Naturalist course, which isn't offered like all the time, and Gail was one of our presenters, and I thought it was so fascinating that I felt everybody would be interested. Okay, now I'm going to switch to you, Mike.
Okay. Let me do this. All right. So I put something in the chat. It's the things so you can just go in and copy and paste some of my actual links and stuff like that, so you don't have to type them in. I wanted to give you the introduction to our chapter, the North San Joaquin Valley chapter of the California Native Plant Society. The California Native Plant Society is a statewide organization, and you can join in for a regular individual membership of $50 to receive Flora and Artemisia magazines, get benefits such as discounts to certain nurseries, sales, and such, and the ability to join 2 different chapters of CNPS. If you'd like to join North San Joaquin Valley chapter and one other, such as Santa Clara Valley chapter or the Sacramento Valley chapter, or others, it will be an option when you go to the link on the slide. We hope that you join us here in the North San Joaquin Valley chapter and whichever other chapter you feel a kinship with. I said the membership was $50, but there is an option to choose other price options, and higher membership levels are available for those who are able to help the organization more financially. It's a great cause. The regular membership link is right there, cnps.org/membership. Remember, this is the link to join up. And I should point out that that long bar at the bottom labeled other is for those who want to choose another amount. And notice the bottom of the bar is actually $25. Not everybody can afford $50, but we have removed membership level titles, and that includes that low income level title. So if you want to join for $25 with the magazines and all, but you just can't afford $50, we still want you to have the opportunity to join us. Just fill in that amount, minimum of $25, and you're in. The 5th edition of our newsletter was sent out in August. Volume 5 of the Oak Branch was sent out to all of our members via email. This was our big bird issue with the articles on how you can help birds and with native plants, and our photo pages with views of the beautiful Ackerson Meadow in Yosemite, the location of July's field trip. October 22nd is our Oakdale Recreation Area field trip, which is located at the end of Ubrini Avenue in Oakdale. Enjoy a peaceful morning walk through the Oakdale Recreation Area as we explore the local riparian wildlife. We will look for interesting birds, bugs, etc., while we discuss the different plants and that grow along the river. All ages are welcome. Bring water and bug spray, sturdy shoes, and binoculars if you have them. Questions can be sent to cnps.nsj.gmail.com. And it is time for our annual plant sale, Saturday, October 28th. This year, again, we'll be partnering with Blossom Hill Nursery in Oakdale. This will be a private sale for CNPS and friends. Again, as last year, 25% of all sales will go to the local chapter. We expect a great turnout, so we will schedule people for the first part of the day to spread people out. Please see the link for the sale information and how to set an appointment. From 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock, no appointment is needed. And I should point out that we intend to get everything by email. We recognize that there are some people that actually prefer US mail. And for those who are inconvenienced, we do apologize, but we don't have the financial or volunteer base to put the newsletter out that way. CNPS has asked all chapters to find ways of reducing carbon, and saving all that paper is one of our contributions. If this is a true problem for you, please let us know. So far, no one has complained. And if you are on our list, and you should have received it, received our newsletter, but if you did not, if you somehow we missed you, please let me know in chat. And to be put on our list, let me know what your email address is. You don't have to tell everybody, just go ahead and direct message to me. We want our newsletter to get out to everyone. That's our mission, to promote native plants around our region. And our best way of doing that is to keep native plants on everyone's mind through events and presentations and gardening. So we want to keep those of you who haven't joined the statewide organization in the loop, so that perhaps you could join us for an event or two, and to remind you that we are here. And why we care about native plants, we're finding out more and more each day about the true need to restore our environment as much as we can. The man who has been trying to explain the need for native plants with the most eloquence is Doug Ptolemy, a professor from Delaware. He's written 3 books on the subject, all of which circle around the theme that we have been damaging the environment dramatically, but there is hope in native plants. 95% of all birds feed insects to their young. Caterpillars are an important component of that diet, and caterpillars cannot live on non-native plants with very few exceptions. Native plants are critical to the ecosystem, and a backyard with no native plants, and that is a devastatingly high percentage of them, are ecological dead zones. Planting native plants in our yards helps moths, butterflies, native bees, and other pollinators, and therefore birds. And the web goes on and on. Our cities need to not be devoid of butterflies, moths, and native bees. So for more information about this, you can watch a 1-hour video that knocked me over like a brick. This was a talk sponsored by local Audubon chapters just this past January. Link is in the chat. And if you have any questions during Madeline's presentation, please add them to the chat. We'll do all the questions. We'll do all of the questions at the end. So I'll be watching, and we'll go ahead and bring that up. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and turn it back over to Cynthia. Cynthia? Gail, you want to go ahead and take over?
Unmute. Here I am.
Okay.
Now, Okay, yeah, I told you a little bit about Gail. Let me tell you a little bit more. So she earned a BS degree in natural resources from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. She's done education and outreach for an Anadromous Fisheries Project in the central region of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife since 1997. So she also, works with in classrooms and is really spreading the word about our native fish. And so I'm eager to hear Gail's talk, but before she jumps right in, Gail, you have to explain this enormous fish and where you found it and what is it? Oh, Gail, you got to unmute.
Sorry, yeah. Actually, it's part of the presentation, so I'm not gonna offer a spoiler at this time. You'll have to wait.
Okay.
So tonight I'm gonna talk about Pacific salmon, steelhead trout, and our local ecosystems. And if you don't know too much about them, that's okay. I didn't either when I started this. Let me see if I can. There we go. So first off, I work for the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and our mission statement is to manage California's diverse fish, wildlife, and plant resources and the habitats upon which they depend for their ecological values and for their use and enjoyment by the public. My region is 12 counties, and so the orange is where I work. My main function is coordinating the Classroom Aquarium Program for all of the 12 counties. And I also do salmon and steelhead outreach and education. For just references, I guess, we the Columbia, the Stanislaus River. And those are the tributaries into the San Joaquin River. And those are the ones that are in our region. When I say our, the central region, Department of Fish and Wildlife central region. So those are the main rivers that I work with, that I talk about. And the San Joaquin goes into the Fresno, and I work some on that also. So let's talk about salmon. There are 7 species of what are classically labeled true Pacific salmon. Okay, I think doesn't want to. Okay, so all are found on the Asian side of the Pacific Ocean, but only 5, the Chinook, coho, sockeye, chum, and pink, are found on the North American side. So the darker the purple, the more species of salmon there are. So when you look down in California on the lower right, it's pretty light colored, especially here in the valley, we only have Chinook. So there are also, though, 2 species of sea running, or so-called sea running trout, which are rainbow or steelhead and cutthroat. They have similar life histories to the salmon, and they are often lumped in with the 5 North American true salmon and treated as Pacific salmon. I have a cold, so I'm going to do my best here. Okay, so some vocabulary. Anadromous. Anadromous means that they are fish that hatch in the freshwater in their natal river. They migrate to the ocean to grow and mature, and then they migrate back upstream, upriver, to their natal river to breed, or what we call spawn. This is not to scale because Chinook salmon are also called king salmon, and king salmon are the largest salmon that we have, and that is what lives here in the Central Valley. We do have coho along the coast. So there is also another way. So there are some species, such as lampreys, that go from the ocean upriver to freshwater and then back out to the ocean. as this lamprey instructor is telling her class. But the salmonid off to the right is explaining no, it goes the other way around. Chinook salmon are the most common salmon in the state, and rainbow trout are the most common trout in the state. Okay, did you know rainbow trout and steelhead trout are the same species? Now, if you talk to a fly fisher, they might argue with you, but excuse me, they are genetically the same. The only difference is that steelhead live an anadromous life, meaning they go out to the ocean. They get that steely color, giving them the name steelhead, when they change to go out to the ocean. Resident trout are trout that usually don't have access to the ocean, so they live their whole life in freshwater. So that's generally lake trout. Okay, let's talk about their life cycle. So Chinook salmon, they get here, and the females, they get upriver here and locally in the valley, and the females will build a nest. Now, the way they do this is they kind of swim on their sides, as the illustration at the top shows. They swim on their sides and use their tail to move the rocks. There has to be some water flow to help them move, especially some of the heavier rocks. But they will make an indentation, and it's large. I mean, king salmon, Chinook salmon are large. They could be 3 feet or so. So when you're talking a red for them, which is what they call their nests, they're like 6 feet or so big. So if you see, and this is going to come up later also, so I want you to notice when you're looking at this, do you see the lighter rock and then you see the darker rock around it? It's because the female fish has disturbed all those rocks, and along with it, disturbed all the algae and decomposing leaves and whatever else was on this river rock, and it got washed down river. So the lighter rocks are the one, that's where a red is. That's where the salmon nest is. Okay. She will make this indent and she will lay thousands of eggs in this red. Now, salmon eggs are than trout eggs. This gives you an idea about how big they are. After she lays her eggs, she covers them up the same way with her tail and moving the rocks over. So you can see, again, look where you can see the dark rocks versus the lighter rocks. She will protect that nest and her eggs until she dies. So that could be 2 or 3 days. She will just swim over that and try to keep any other females from making their nests on top of hers. This is a steelhead red in Santa Barbara area, and steelhead are smaller, so their nests are smaller, but they're still called reds, and it's the same idea. And you can see that lighter rock has been cleaned up. Here's an aerial view of a river, and you can see the lighter patches. These lighter patches are what the biologists look for. They are currently, they do this every week. They will float the river and look for fish carcasses and reds, and they count them and keep track of them. And drones have also given us a new way of checking on our fish and the reds. So the eggs hatch after absorbing enough heat energy, and we call that thermal units. So it's not a function of time, it's a function of heat energy that they have accumulated. Same way after they hatch. So when they hatch, they have a yolk sac attached to them, which is what's shown on the lower photo. And they're terrible swimmers. They're weak. They have this huge thing of yolk sac attached to them, so they just go hide in the rocks. They're hardwired to do that, and so that's what they go do. At this point, they are called alevins, and as I said, they hide in the rocks there. So to absorb their yolk sac and go all the way to pretty much buttoning up and having the term we use when they've absorbed all their yolk sac, it will take weeks. If the water say 50 degrees, it will take them about 2 weeks to use up their yolk sac. A little cooler, of course, longer, and warmer. When we're talking just a few degrees warmer, they'll mature faster. Trout tend to be more tolerant of heat than salmon. So that's why you have more salmon. You have salmon in the northern part, you have the trout. They can live in the southern part of the valley because they can take the warmer temperatures. A little warmer. We're not talking much. After they absorb their yolk sac, they become free swimmers and they have to swim around and look for food. Their food eat the aquatic plants generally. So their brain changes to what we call photopositive, meaning light positive. Light, it's a good idea. And they go up and they are swimming around, and their marks on their body even helps them camouflage themselves amongst the plants in the river bottoms so they can find their food. And there's a lot of variabilities, but after a certain amount of time, they become teenagers. And at this point, they are having to get their bodies prepared for living in the salt water. So at this point, they're called smolts. And as I said, smolts are what I consider the teenagers of the salmon world. Saltification, so all of the changing of the body preparation for going from salt to fresh, from fresh to salt water, including the coloring so that they blend in differently. All of that needs to be finished before they could go live in the ocean. Some smolts spend quite a bit of time in the estuary, others not so much. They just bolt right out there. They're a little not well understood, I guess. They're hard to study, but I guess they're teenagers, so that goes without saying, right? All right, adults will stay in the ocean usually 2 to 4 years. Around here, it's 2 to 3 is more common, but we do get 4-year-olds. Some Chinook will return after only a year. There's very few, but a few don't go out at all. And then there are some Chinook that might stay out 5 or 6 years. Around here, we have a fall run Chinook. Now, in the news and online, you'll see a lot about the winter run Chinook. Those are out of the Sacramento River system, and they are endangered. Our fall run Chinook are threatened, but they are not officially endangered. So our fall run, that means that they come home in the fall, and they're on their way now, according to the monitors out in the rivers, and they will usually, most of them will get up here in the valley between Veterans Day and Thanksgiving. But according to the numbers I just looked at today, they're just barely starting to come. So it's a bit of a bell curve. A few will come early, a few will come late, and most will come in the middle. So Chinook salmon do not eat once they leave the ocean, which is pretty amazing. I guess, my kids have called them zombie fish, or Animal Planet has called them zombie fish. They are not the swimming undead. They just don't eat. Their digestive system starts to atrophy. And if you look at the one on the bottom especially, he's been beat up. He's losing his fins. He's decaying as he swims up to this natal river. He's been thrashed against rocks and trees and cement. Who knows what he's hit? And his nose, at this point, a sexually mature Chinook salmon should have a hooked nose. His whole scientific name is based on that. And yet his whole hooked snout is beat off. It's just this white snub. Where the female at the top, she hasn't, of course, lost as much nose, and she's not as white. The guy on the bottom, he's pretty beat up. They get up to where they, especially the female, she is happy with a mix of large, medium, small, different sizes of gravel. She decides the river has enough water, oxygen, and the right gravel, and she decides this is it. So then she decides who she wants to be the father of her children. And the sad part is that they, if I can do this, okay. Unlike Atlantic salmon, Pacific salmon die after they spawn. So a lot of people don't realize that. So you'll see a lot of Atlantic salmon in the grocery store because they can spawn more than once. Pacific salmon get one shot at it. So there's good news and bad news. Pacific salmon, because of this, they're called simiparous. And there is a unique nutrient cycle we're going to talk about. But first, I want to mention that steelhead do not necessarily die after spawning. It's another way that they are like not true salmon. They have gone to the ocean, but they do not die. Maybe the first time. They might be able to spawn like 2-3 times, 2 to 3 different years before they die. And locally in the inland rivers, the steelhead come back to spawn in the winter and the spring. So they're generally fewer in number than the salmon we have now, and they are smaller than the Chinook salmon. So even though they've grown up out in the ocean, they come back, they're still smaller, so they're easier to find hiding spots. They are harder to spot. According to a biologist, they're harder to spot because they have a lot easier time finding places to hide. So the unique nutrient cycle. So smolts, as I said, the teenagers, they go out to the ocean this size. And this size, to give you a reference, is also referred to as fingerlings. Now, fingerlings is an old term, but it's basically meant, about the average size of a man's finger. So they call them fingerlings. So they go out to the ocean that size, and they come back like this. Okay, so not all of them come back like this. But this guy, this is not photoshopped. Yes, his eyeballs are missing, but they're the first thing to go when they die. But he had newly died, so they were able to approximate he weighed about 88 pounds when he came in. So this is in Battle Creek. It's not one of our local creeks, but it is California. And here they come in more like this. So this is the fish you were asking about. And this is a fish that, can you see how beat up he is? Okay, let's not mention even that he's missing his top of his head. But this is a carcass that the biologists had done a carcass survey on the Stanislaus River at Knights Ferry the year I took this picture. And what they do, and if you see it this in fall, if you're out in the rivers, you might see, dead fish or dead fish cut in half. Or you might see fish like this. And so this fish, see, it has what they call a hog tie on the jaw, and they've taken away the top of the head. So there's a system for keeping data on some of the fish, and what they do before they let them go at hatcheries, a certain percentage of them, they will mark. And when they do put a mark in the head of the young fish, they also cut off the adipose fin, which is the small little fin. It's kind of like an earlobe by the tail. when the fish come back home and the biologists see one of those fish missing a tail, missing the, not the tail, missing the adipose fin by the tail, they will take a look at it, and if they will take the head, and then back at the lab, they get to pick and find the tag that was put in the young fish head. And those tags, if you write with mechanical pencils and you push too hard and the tip of the lead goes flying across the room, it's about that size, and it's etched with a laser that tells where and when they were spawned. And, so when they were released, their data, and you can go into the database and figure it out. So it's kind of fun. So now we know the straying of it. So that helps us know how much of the genetics is mixed up, and some mix is good. So we've had fish come from, I think we've had one down from Oregon, and I believe we had at least one of ours from the Merced hatchery end up in Oregon. So it's kind of fun to find out. So with that unique nutrient cycle, there are three main pathways by which the nutrients released from these salmon carcasses get into the upstream ecosystem. Okay, so the number one is animals eating the eggs, the fry, and the carcasses. And so, Cynthia, you were just mentioning that, yeah, the trout were just eating the eggs. Yes, so that's one reason the female will protect her nest, because if another female comes along and starts digging up rocks, which end up digging up and letting her eggs loose to float down the river, she takes exception to that. So that's why she will attack, she will fight off anybody who comes close, and she just protects as long as she can above her red. But with that said, one salmon or trout can lay thousands, tens of thousands of eggs, maybe 5,000, depending on the size. So there are some, that can kind of be spared, I guess you could say. So, excuse me, the three animals that I have here, we got the merganser, which are fish-eating duck. And so they love it when the smolts are swimming around, and the fry. Bald eagles, they will eat the carcasses, and the otters, they will eat them and catch them live, or they'll eat the carcasses. There was a study done not that long ago on the McCalmey River, and they found 14 species of mammals alone that were eating the salmon carcasses out of the river. So that doesn't even count the birds or any of the other animals. It was just mammals. And, when mammals eat, they poop. So that's one way the nutrients get into the cycle. Another way is the microfauna. In the streambed gravel, there are small animals, some microscopic, that live on and among the gravel, and they eat dissolved bits of rotting carcasses. Now, one thing I forgot to mention on number one, there is also another study that was done that measured that bears would go, and it was not in California, but bears would go and drag the carcasses out of the river and drag them up to 200 yards away from the river. Okay, so they would eat up there. Of course, you do what you do, but that shows that we're not just talking about right on the riverbank. Some of these animals, the bigger animals, can take these carcasses out quite a ways away from the river. The microfauna are picking up what's left behind and what's falling off. Okay, and I just thought I'd give you a gross alert. If you're squeamish, just look away for a minute, because I got something that shows you this is what happens. So this is a standard, typical thing that you will see along the rivers in the fall. And it's normal. It's not like we had a terrible thing happen in the rivers. That's what happens with Pacific salmon. They die after they spawn. Okay, you come back now. Sorry, it's poop though. But when even these microfauna eat, they have waste products. So that is another way that this is getting into the the ecosystem. Okay, and the third way is the primary production, the producers. And they're, of course, mainly green plants. And some of the mineral nutrients come from salmon carcasses. Nitrogen is one of the main things that help plants that come from salmon. So producers range in diversity from the microscopic single-celled algae to plants and large trees. Now, I read one study where they even found the isotopes from marine-derived nitrogen in wine grapes and wine grape plants here in California. So that gives you a whole nother twist next time you have salmon. Okay, if I haven't been nerding out enough, I'm going to nerd out just a little bit more. Okay, there's a term called meta ecosystems, and it's defined as sets of ecosystems that are connected by organisms and energy and materials. So the movement of plants and animals by dispersal, foraging, or migration can bring individuals, resources, and novel species interactions to habitats across the ecosystem boundaries. The meta ecosystem is a useful framework in rivers that connect to the sea where the anadromous fishes, and fishes just means different multiple species of fish. So where anadromous fishes spawn and die during their life cycle. When anadromous salmon return to their natal streams to spawn, they provide organisms energy and materials. So Pacific salmon and steelhead provide the novel interactions in organisms through bioturbation, and I just learned this word. That just means that it's something moving, something living, moving, something like sedimentary layers. So it's living meets geology. So in this case, it's, remember I said we were going to talk about the rocks again? This is where the fish are moving the rocks and messing with the layers of gobbledygook, for a technical term, on top of the leaves, on top of the rocks. So you've got the decomposing leaves and the algae and the moss and whatever else might be out there. So Pacific salmon do that, and steelhead will do that. They also bring energy via the nutrient subsidies through their carcasses that we already talked about to both aquatic and terrestrial habitats. In this way, salmon ecosystems reflect the meta ecosystem concept. Okay, so this was new this January. This 2023 paper from the Simon Fraser University conducted a large-scale field experiment, and it's in British Columbia. And they placed salmon carcasses and or marine algae in a wildflower meadow and observed the changes over 3 successive years. Now, they had an algae only section, an algae carcass together section, and a salmon only section. And then they have their control, okay? So they could tell if it was one, both, or either. They found that the marine-derived resource subsidies in salmon ecosystems have terrestrial effects that range in size from communities to individuals. So it might be just one plant or one thing, or it might be more. Effects on terrestrial communities include the alteration of plant, insect, and bird community structure and diversity. So now we've got a connection between birds and fish, more than just them eating, the birds eating the fish. You have effects on individuals can be seen in birds, where the salmon subsidies can influence male habitat selection, behavior, and territory size, and riparian plants where salmon subsidies can increase photosynthesis by increasing stomatal density and fruit production. So they are salmon carcasses, and the nutrients from them are changing the vegetation enough that it's giving birds a different idea of what they want to do, where they want to be, and that makes Tweety happy. So the scientists found that the nutrients from the salmon cause 2 species of wildflower, yarrow and the common red paintbrush, to grow large leaves. That means more photosynthesis was available. In addition, marine-derived nutrients increase the seed sets in yarrow in the 3rd and final year of the study. This is consistent with prior work on riparian plant species such as salmonberry, which I thought that was, fitting for this. And it produces a higher abundance of berries per plant on streams with larger returns of chum salmon. So this is more up north. We don't have chum locally, but they're cousins, nutrients are nutrients, and it's the same kind of yarrow. Okay, let me just get rid of this bar again. Additionally, the authors of this one found that the common red paintbrush and the Douglas aster have larger flowers where there are carcass nutrients available, and they have the potential to attract beneficial pollinating insects. But results may vary. This is biology after all. So not only did results differ by species and plant growth type, but other variables affect the movement of nutrients from the ocean to the land. So when I say plant growth type, it seemed like by reading it, the parts of the plant that were able to more quickly respond to nutrients being available. So the leaves were different, but not necessarily the roots or the bulbs. That kind of thing happened. So the movements of nutrients from the ocean to the land are affected by also environmental and climatic fluctuations, disruptions by humans, fluctuating salmon populations, which mean if we don't get the water in the rivers and the salmon can't go out to the ocean, they're not going to be able to come back home in 2 to 4 years. It's not from 1 year to the next. It affects 3-4 years down the road. And salmon vulnerability to fishing pressure and climate change can also affect how many come home. As my introduction, I've done this for a long time, and I will also say, when I started, it was just a fish. And it is just an amazing animal. I didn't even cover half of the cool stuff about salmon. But it's also, I had said to myself that when I quit learning something new, I was going to quit my job and get something different. And I learned even so much more putting this presentation together. So they're amazing, the ecosystems are amazing, the interactions are amazing. I use the word amazing a lot when I do presentations. And it is biology, so things do differ, but there are common threads. So understanding the meta ecosystems, how the ecosystems interact and can interact, understanding that better allows for a more unified approach to the ecosystem-based management amid global change and deeper understanding of the consequences of human actions. And you never know where you'll find the salmon. And that's it. That's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, there were a few. So the first one, I think, Carol was curious about native fish in Gilroy. Do you know what kind of fish she might find in Gilroy? Do you know anything about that area?
It would depend on where you are. Trying to figure out how to stop screen sharing. Oh wait. So if you're talking about river or there's different places. So no, I don't know. There might be more on our department website. Because salmon and trout are cold water fish. So, and the reason they're cold water is because they also have to have a lot of oxygen, and cold water will hold more oxygen. So if you get in a river in the late summer, like now, they're not really, the cold water fish are not active. So if you go to a lake, the cold water fish are going down where the water is cooler. So if you're wanting warm water fish, say bass, that would be, someplace else. So I would say try our website, take a look. Potentially where the fish plants are might help you out too. And we have a fish, what we call fishing passport, that lists all of the fish in our state. So you might be able to find that online. I'm not positive they did that online. That's not a really full answer, but no, I don't know the native versus non-native. A lot of the fish that we fish, a lot of our recreational fish have been introduced over the years. Our department started in the 1870s, so we had a long time to introduce non-native fish for recreational purposes. So that's one reason there are restrictions based on where we put our hatchery fish, so that we're trying to get back our native fish and keep the hatchery genes in specific places. So hope that helps.
And Travis had a question, although I think he must have left, but maybe he might be watching the recording at some point later on. He was curious about native versus invasive fish in the Delta.
That's a big subject. So I'm not sure what he was. Again, there would be species lists, I believe, on our website. If he's just looking at, what is the species list, or the reason non-native can be a problem, besides competition for resources. So
well, you
I'm
said
not sure.
specifically invasives, and invasive would be, I mean, obviously you don't want to have non-native fish, but there are some that are probably worse problems than others.
Yes.
I would think.
Yeah. So invasive fish are the ones that really outcompete our native fish. And so they're the ones who can move in and eat up all the food and take other resources in the hiding spots and can cause disease problems. So we've got a aquatic invasive species problem in general in our state. So we have a whole section about invasive species that talks more about it. And again, I want to refer you to our website, and that would also get you to the contact information to the staff that work on invasive species.
And Cynthia was looking at the fact that the female trout has to store 5,000 eggs, and she's wondering how does she do that, and does she keep creating eggs during the spawning process?
No, she's also done. She doesn't eat anymore, and her systems start to atrophy, and all her nutrition is going towards those eggs. And her digestive system, same with the male, but her digestive system is shrinking. And that helps make room for the eggs also inside. And the eggs aren't real big, but they, I don't know if you can see, but you know, in a salmon, they call it a skein, and that is the bag where the eggs are kept. So, you know, it's kind of like a medium average size skein of yarn. I'm not sure why they just call it a skein, but she can do it, but it's at the cost of her digestive system.
Cynthia also asked if salmon eat plants.
Not really. They'll eat fish, but they have all their teeth are sharp, pointy teeth. They don't have the grinding teeth like our teeth are in the back of our mouths, or you know, cow teeth, those grinding teeth. Salmon steelhead don't have that kind of teeth. They're very sharp.
Cool. And Cynthia also asked, what effect do you expect this year from the rain deluge?
Fingers crossed. We don't know yet. So they're coming home. We don't know how many are coming home. And remember how I was saying that they stay out 2 to 4 years. So this rain deluge helped them get out safely, most likely. But we'll have to wait 2 to 4 years and see if there's enough water in the river for them to come home. And they're bigger then too, so they need more water. So some of you might remember the 1997 floods that we had, and they were in January, and they were like perfect timing for these young fish to they just went out to the ocean, past all those predators, do not pass go, do not collect $100. They just went. And yes, in about 2 or 3 years, there was a definite influx. You could tell the difference in population return. So we'll see. So fingers crossed, and hope that we get enough water, like I said, in the 2 to 4 years that they're able to swim up the river.
John put a link in the chat regarding how salmon feed flowers and flourishing ecosystems.
Yes.
So
great.
So they can share that. I saw somebody fishing out of the what would you call it, the aqueduct thing that they used to transfer the water around for agricultural purposes, and someone was fishing out of one of those. Do they have any fish in those?
I think sometimes they do, because people do fish there.
Maybe somebody just threw some fish in there hoping that they would. I would
they're
think it's in
escaped.
cover.
I mean, you know, they're coming from like lakes and things, so where the water's coming from, maybe there's some fish that got let loose at the same time.
Okay. So Cynthia is suggesting that we go ahead and open it up if anybody wants to talk, to unmute and talk. So if you'd like to do that, why don't you go ahead and put your use the what do you call it, raise hand feature. You would, let's see, where would that be? That's in reactions. So on the bottom it says reactions, and raise hand is the lowest option there. So if you're interested in talking, go ahead and let us know. Hello, Jean, did you have a question or a comment?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Hi, Jean.
Hi, Gail. Gail's a champion, and for those of you that are still with us, did you mention, I may have missed it, the Knights Ferry Salmon Festival and the status of that, and
No, I forgot.
the amazing place that I'm sure you work multiple locations. That is a very interesting place to go. A lovely, picking the time of year, that kind of thing. Thank you. Would you share that with folks? Because I know they think about outings all the time, and that would be lovely.
Oh yeah, sure. It's this year, it's always the second Saturday of November. And this year that happens to be Veterans Day, but we're doing it anyway. It's 10 to 3 o'clock at Knights Ferry along the river. It's a family-friendly event. We're going to have biologists out there. They're going to be doing showing the scientific part of it, of carcass surveys and such. Unfortunately, the Lions Club isn't available this year to serve their fantastic salmon, so you're just going to have to come again next year too. But we will have some food available. There's other vendors, and then we will be there. Fish and Wildlife Service puts it together. State parks will be there. There's, I believe, like at least 30 different booths. The last I counted, but they're still adding. So it's a family-friendly event. And the great thing is the salmon should be spawning at that time. That's why we do it. So you can go out along the bridge. There's a sidewalk there. It's pedestrian friendly, and you can go look down onto the the Stanislaus River and see the salmon in the river. It's very cool. I've done it many years.
I was going to say, it's a lovely event. Don't be distracted by what the topography looks like when you're driving down the road to get there. You're thinking there can't be anything out here. It's kind of dry and it's just rolling hills, because you drop down in and you get down to the river, and it is glorious. And
yes,
the turnout and the professionals and the groups that come out to provide hands-on activities. It's a lovely opportunity. And you might even see Gail.
Yes, I plan to be there, and you will see the longest covered bridge this side of the Mississippi. So,
hey, Gail, could you mention again the name of this festival and the date?
It's the Stanislaus River Salmon Festival, and it is November 11th this year. It's always the second Saturday of November, which happens to be Veterans Day this year. But if we move it, Knights Ferry has a pumpkin roll, and one year we made the mistake of doing it the same weekend as the pumpkin roll, and boy, did we get in trouble. So,
will you tell me the date again? I was trying to type this and I wasn't.
November 11th.
And is there like a website we can go to?
There is a Facebook group I know that is the Stanislaus River Salmon Festival Facebook group.
Okay.
Facebook
CNPS,
page.
I went last year.
CNPS is going to have a table there.
You are good. Great.
Yeah. I'm going to bring my daughter. So,
me too.
Anyway, are there any other questions? Cynthia, do you want to jump in and I think we're coming to the end here.
Yeah, well, I just want to thank you so much. Let me tell my Gail for coming and talking to us about fish and plants. And I was just fascinated to hear that how much the fish along in the ecosystem are changing the plants, making them bigger and better. And that
yes.
study that you quoted is really interesting.
There are more studies.
Yeah.
When I first noticed this, it was just the one about the wine grapes. But since that, in the years since, there have been more studies. So I had to make a decision for this talk. It's like either it was one of those, include them all, or which one did I include? And I thought this one that was just this year in 2023, and it says specifically plant species that we have here. I thought that was really, really interesting. So
right. Does anyone have any last questions? By the way, I will mention that Dr. Jeannie Knapp, who's here on in the meeting, she was actually the one that taught the class that I took, the California Naturalist class, and that's how I got to know Gail. So she's a great instructor, and I learned a ton. But I'm glad to hear it again too. All right, so we're gonna finish up. Thanks everyone for coming. If you want to get on our, Mike, did you tell them how that they can get on our mailing list?
I
you
did
tell
at
them how
the
to
very
do that?
beginning. Yeah, nobody. I think everybody's on the list that's here.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And Mike, you want to turn off the recording?
Sure. Now
Oh,
you are also recording, so you're going to want to turn yours off as well.
Really?
Yeah, if you looked up at the list on the side, you could tell that both of us were recording. And now you see the little red dot that says you're recording still.